Hello, we are the Ministry of the Real Truth, and hopefully the JPEG that we've supplied draws an interest in this particular book that we came across, because in the JPEG this is a monument or a stele with Chinese writing above it and ancient Aramaic underneath it. So if the translator Victor N. Alexander had actually gone on an adventure with his wife around the world, he went through China and came across this stele, this monument, and realised, hey, it's got Chinese up the top, but it's got Aramaic underneath. So obviously, or to his understanding, obviously someone who spoke Aramaic came through there on their way to China, probably to teach the gospel of Christ. And it was accepted there, and this monument was made. So we found this book, My Nestorian Adventure in China, a popular account of the home Nestorian expedition to Hsi-an-fu, and its results by Fritz Home in 1923. It was published, right? So we went through most of the book to get to this specifically, okay? Because it relates to the Nestorians or the Church of the East. It's kind of a hard one for us to get our head around, but we'll try to make the best of it. Chapter 8, the Nestorian inscription. To make a literal translation of the Syro-Chinese inscription on the Nestorian monument is impossible. The fine shadings of words, or rather ideographs, that gave colours and highlights to the exquisite prose and verse of the Tang dynasty, writers have in measure been lost, while the meaning of each and every character on the stone, in the grossest sense of the word, is undoubtedly the same today as it was in AD 781. The subtler values have even, according to Chinese scholars, changed and side-shifted, however imperceptibly. The bilingual inscription bears incontestable witness to one of the greatest historic romances ever enacted on Asian, or, for that matter, on any other soil. It fires the imagination to think of the heroism of that little band of Nestorian emissaries who crossed Asia and introduced Christianity to the sons of Han, even more than 6 centuries before the second Christian mission came into China, namely that of Bishop John of Monte Corvino. For Nestorianism arrived not later than AD 635, while the Roman Catholicism came via India, AD 1292. But let the inscription speak for itself. The 2 translations chosen here from a goodly number are those of the English scholar, the Reverend Dr. Alexander Wiley, and of the distinguished Professor P.Y. Saeki of Waseda University in Tokyo. They are printed in parallel columns as an experiment for better comparison. By A. Wiley, reprinted from the Nestorian Monument by Fritz Home and Paul Karras, published by the Open Court Publishing Company, Chicago in 1909. Tablet eulogizing the propagation of the illustrious religion in China, with a preface composed by King Xing, a priest of the Syrian Church, which reads, "Behold the unchangeably true and invisible, who existed through all eternity without origin, the far-seeing perfect intelligence whose mysterious existence is everlasting, operating on primordial substance. He created the universe, being more excellent than all holy intelligences, in as much as he is the source of all that is honourable. This is our eternal true Lord, God triune and mysterious in substance. He appointed the cross as a means for determining the 4 cardinal points. He moved the original spirit and produced the 2 principles of nature. The sombre void was changed, and heaven and earth were opened out. The sun and moon revolved, and day and night commenced, having perfected all inferior objects. He then made the first man. Upon him he bestowed an excellent disposition, giving him in charge the government of all created beings. Man, acting out the original principles of his nature, was pure and unostentatious. His unsullied and expansive mind was free from the least inordinate desire, until Satan introduced the seeds of falsehood to deteriorate his purity of principle. The opening thus commenced, and his virtue gradually enlarged, and by this crevice in his nature was obscured and rendered vicious. Hence 365 sects following each other in continuous track, inventing every species of doctrinal complexity. Whereas you have the Japanese P.Y. Saeki and his translation of it, reprinted from the Nestorian Monument in China by P.Y. Saeki, published by the Society for Promoting Christian Knowledge, London, 1916. So that was, 7 years later. A monument commemorating the propagation of the Dachin, luminous religion in the Middle Kingdom. Eulogy on a monument commemorating the propagation of the luminous religion in the Middle Kingdom, with a preface to the same, composed by Qing, a priest of the Dachin monastery in Syriac, Adam, priest and Chorepiscopos, and Papas, Pope of Shenastan. Behold, there is one who is true and firm, who being uncreated is the origin of the origins, who is ever incomprehensible and invisible, yet ever mysterious, existing to the last of the last, who holding the secret source of origins created all things, and who bestowing existence on all the holy ones, the only originated Lord of the universe. Is not this our Allah, that's probably what they're referring to, the triune, mysterious person, the unbegotten and true Lord? Dividing the cross, he determined the 4 cardinal points, setting in motion the primordial spirit or wind. He produced the 2 principles of nature. The dark void was changed, and heaven and earth appeared. The sun and moon revolved, and day and night began. Having designed and fashioned all things, he then created the first man and bestowed on him an excellent disposition, superior to all others, and gave him to have dominion over the ocean of created things. The original nature of man was pure and void of all selfishness, unstained and unostentatious. His mind was free from inordinate lust and passion. When, however, Satan employed his evil devices on him, man's pure and stainless nature was deteriorated. The perfect attainment of goodness on the one hand, and the entire exemption from wickedness on the other hand, became alike impossible for him. In consequence of this, 365 different forms of error arose in quick succession and left deep furrows behind. They strove to weave nets of the law with to ensnare the innocent. Okay, so it's whereupon one person of our Trinity, the Messiah, who is the luminous Lord of the universe, veiling his true majesty, appeared unto earth as a man. Angels proclaimed the glad tidings. A virgin gave birth to the Holy One in Dachin. Okay. A bright star announced the blessed event. Persians saw the splendour and came forth with their tribute. These men from the Middle East, right? From the East, fulfilling the old law as it was declared by the 24 sages. He, the Messiah, taught how to rule both families and kingdoms according to his own great plan, establishing his new teaching of non-assertion, which operates silently through the Holy Spirit, another person of the Trinity. He formed in man the capacity for well-doing through the right faith, and so forth. So basically it's, as it's stated, two side-by-side comparative translations of that Nestorian inscription. Okay, they're explaining it in great detail. And it states here, now without holy men, principles cannot become expanded. Without principles, holy men cannot become magnified. But with holy men and right principles, united as the two parts of a signet, the world becomes civilized and enlightened. In the time of the accomplished Emperor Tai-tsung, the illustrious and magnificent founder of the dynasty. Among the enlightened holy men who arrived was the most virtuous Alapun from the country of Syria. Observing the azure clouds, he bore the true sacred books. Beholding the direction of the winds, he braved difficulties and dangers. In the year 635, he arrived at Chang'an. The emperor sent his prime minister, Duke Fang Huan-ling, who, carrying the official staff to the west border, conducted his guest into the interior. The sacred books were translated in the imperial library. The sovereign investigated the subject in his private apartments. When becoming deeply impressed with the rectitude and truth of the religion, he gave special orders for its dissemination. In the 7th month of the year 638, the following imperial proclamation was issued. Right principles have no invariable name. Holy men have no invariable station. Instruction is established in accordance with the locality, with the object of benefiting the people at large. The greatly virtuous Apollon of the kingdom of Syria has brought his sacred books and images from that distant past and has presented them at our chief capital. Having examined the principles of this religion, we find them to be purely excellent and natural. Investigating its originating source, we find it has taken its rise from the establishment of important truths. Its ritual is free from perplexing expressions. Its principles will survive when the framework is forgot. It is beneficial to all creatures. It is advantageous to mankind. Let it be published throughout the empire, it's a Chinese empire, and let the proper authority build a Syrian church in the capital of the Ming, which shall be governed by 21 priests. When the virtue of the Zhou dynasty declined, the rider on the azure ox ascended to the west. The principles of the great Dang became resplendent. The illustrious breeze have come to fan the east. So it was introduced into China. They looked at those sacred writings and says, well, this is all natural, this is truth, excellent, and so on. Right, so they declared it that a church should be made for them, especially with 21 priests. A Syrian church in the capital at the Hsingan-fu, which shall be governed by 21 priests. Yeah, so that was decreed by that particular leader, because he could see the truth, the beauty, and the value in it. The Emperor Cao-tsung respectfully succeeded his ancestor and was still more beneficent toward the institution of truth. In every province he caused illustrious churches to be erected and ratified the honour conferred upon Alapon, making him the great conservator of doctrine for the preservation of the state. While this doctrine pervaded every channel, the state became intus edifice. He established a place of worship. He restored the consecrated timbers which had been temporarily thrown down and re-erected the sacred stones. They probably fell down after years. And re-erected the sacred stones which for a time had been desecrated. Oh, somebody had gone there and ruined it, right? Perhaps. In 742, orders were given to the great general China Lat to send the 5 sacred portraits and have them placed in the church, and a gift of 100 pieces of silk accompany these pictures of intelligence. Although the dragon's beard was then remote, their bows and swords were still within reach, while the solar horns sent forth their rays, and celestial visages seemed close at hand. Okay, and here's that similar from the Japanese guy. Okay, as we said before, it's comparing what was translated from the historical records, the histories of that Chinese kingdom, by the looks of it. The accomplished and enlightened Emperor Shutsun rebuilt the illustrious churches in Lingwu and 4 other places. Great benefits were conferred and felicity began to increase. Great munificence was displayed and the imperial state became established. The accomplished and military Emperor Tai-tsung magnified the sacred succession and honoured the latent principle of nature. Always on the incarnation day he bestowed celestial incense, etc., etc. Okay, it still looks like they're still promoting it. Here it says, the affections will be free and the eyes will be sincere. Such is the laudable condition which we of the illustrious religion are labouring to obtain. It's talking about that Syriac church. What's this? He honoured, decorated the various edifices till they resembled the plumage of the pheasant in its flight. Moreover, practising the discipline of the illustrious religion, he distributed his riches and deeds of benevolence. Every year he assembled those in the sacred office from 4 churches and respectively engaged them for 50 days in purification and preparation. The naked came and were clothed, the sick were attended to and restored, the dead were buried in repose. Even among the most pure and self-denying of the Buddhists, such excellence was never heard of. The white-clad members of the illustrious congregation of that Syriac church, now considering these men, have decided to engrave a broad tablet in order to set forth a eulogy of their magnanimous deeds. So some sort of monument, I guess. It's an ode. The true Lord is without origin, profound, invisible, and unchangeable, with power and capacity to perfect and transform. He raised up the earth and established the heavens. Divided in nature, he entered the world to save and to help without bounds. The sun rose and darkness was dispelled. There's a comparison there. It is the true Lord who was uncreated and was ever profound, firm, and unchangeable. He created the universe after his own plan and raised the earth and framed heaven. Dividing his Godhead, he took human form, and through him salvation was made free to all. The sun arising and darkness was ended, and light coming to all, etc., etc. What does it say here? Dividing his Godhead, he took human form. So it's a separation of the three, the triune, and he came in human form, and through him salvation was made free to all. So that's talking about God incarnate in the flesh in the form of Jesus the Christ, Yeshua Mashiach, Jesus the Messiah, and all bearing witness to his true original, and so forth. Okay, it looks like Gao Zong succeeded to his ancestral estate and he rebuilt that church. When the pure, bright, illustrious religion, that's the Syriac church, was introduced to our dynasty, the scriptures were translated and churches built and the vessels set in motion for the living and the dead. Every kind of blessing was then obtained and all the kingdoms enjoyed a state of peace. Okay? So that's what they brought them. It resulted in kingdoms enjoying a state of peace. When Kaltsing succeeded to the ancestral estate, he rebuilt the edifices of purity, palaces of concord, large and light, covered the land and breadth of the land. So at that time, those Chinese provinces, that country was very blessed. Some more information here. So the Chinese nation was prospering in peace and extra other things. This was erected in the second year of King Chung of the Tang dynasty, AD 781, on the 7th day of the first month, being Sunday. Written by Liu Xiu-yin, secretary to council, formerly military superintendent for Dai Chao, while the Bishop Ning Shu had the charge of the congregations of the illustrious in the east. The two lines of Syriac are in the Estrangolo character and run down the right and left sides of the Chinese respectively. Kircher translates this as follows: Adam, Deacon, Vicar, Episcopal and Pope of China. In the time of the Father of Fathers, the Lord John Joshua, the Universal Patriarch. The translation of the Syriac at the foot of the stone is given here on the authority of Kircher. this one here is saying basically the same thing. Erected in the second year of the Hsi-an-fu period, 781 AD, of the Great Tang dynasty, the Yang dynasty, the year star being in So'o, not too sure how you say that, on the 7th day of the first month, the day being the Great Yao Sin-win day. Yao San 1 day, when the spiritual lord, the priest Ning-shu, i.e. mercy and peace, was entrusted with the care of the luminous communities of the East. In Syriac, in the day of our father of fathers, my lord Hanan Isho, Catholic Logos Patriarch. In Chinese, written by Liu Hsi-an-fu, Assistant Secretary of State and the Superintendent of the Civil Engineering Bureau of Dai Jiao, i.e. a Department of Zhejiang. Below the description, partly in Syriac and partly in Chinese, are these notices. And it's probably there. And these are all a list of, looks like priests or something like that. Very interesting. So far, the absorbingly interesting translation of Alexander Wiley, the great British missionary, and Professor P.Y. Saiki, the learned Japanese sinologue. There are still inscribed on both slender sides of the stone upwards of 70 names of Nestorian missionaries, with their transliterations in Chinese. All of them are enumerated in Saiki's book. The back of the Qingqia or Pei, however, is innocent of inscription, and its authors suppose that one must mention that on the right side of the monument, i.e. the left when facing the inscription, is superscribed in a most vainglorious and vandalic manner the omni-important fact that one Han Huai Ta, or Han Huai Da, came and visited the famous relic during AD 1859. Only too vividly does the author recall the righteous indignation of the native stonecutters at having to add this preposterous postscript of yesteryear in order that the replica might be rendered complete. It's very interesting. So hopefully you found that interesting. There's lots more to this book, but it's irrelevant to what we're trying to get at about the Nestorians coming through China and being allowed to set up their Syriac churches there, helping, which then, because they had so many blessings, these rulers at the time who was doing so, they were blessed with like abundant peace and growth and less rebelliousness and all that sort of stuff. So that shows the power of God, right? Moving through that particular area. So we hope that you enjoyed this video, that it opened your eyes to the Nestorian Church, the Apostolic Church of the East, founded by Thomas Adai, with the help of Bartholomew and Peter, their involvement, and how they spread the gospel of Jesus Christ as disciples, his disciples, through different countries, through India, China, and possibly went on to Japan. We're yet to find a book on the Nestorians in Japan. So if you enjoyed this, subscribe to our channel, give us a like, add your comments below the video, and then share this particular video with your family, friends, neighbours, etc. And any Asian friends, discuss it with them, talk to them about it. They may know, yeah, there's historical record there of these people. and so forth. They may be able to back it up for you, right? Give you further information on those people, the Nestorians, within the Chinese histories.